Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. As promised from the last post that I put up, or last video, we're gonna get into birth story number 2 for me. And again, I just wanna remind everyone, I am not a doctor, I'm not giving medical advice. This is just my experience that I went through, and by sharing this, I'm hoping it will help someone or someone you may know, but let's get into it. So now I have an 18-month-old baby. When we find out we are pregnant with number 2, which was good. We were planning that. We said we would start at 18 months. So actually she was 19 months. But we found out we were pregnant and we were really excited. We wanted them to be close in age, but not super close. We wanted a good age gap, and we wanted to make sure that our first one was ready, and kind of understood what was going on when we brought a new baby home. So time goes on. My due date is at the end of January, and like I said in my previous video about everybody says you go past your due date with your first one, which was not the case for me. Everybody said with your second one, they come early, get ready. Don't expect to make it to your due date. So I was thinking, okay, my due date was January 26th. I was hoping, I'm like, oh, I could get a January 13th baby, because like I said, my favorite number is 13, so I wanted to somehow get that in there. But so I just kind of expected to have the baby early. And as time went on, I'm getting closer. Nothing's going on. I have a bit of contractions here and there in the month of January, but nothing like super close together, just really far apart at night, mostly at night. And I end up, my due date was on a Sunday. So the way it worked is I had my 40th week appointment the next day on that Monday. So I went in, my husband had taken some time off work, so he had that Monday off for 2 weeks. So he was able to go with me to the 40-week appointment. And there my OB asked me if she, or if I wanted her to do what is called a membrane sweep. I know some people, it isn't for everyone. I did choose to do it just because I was at 40 weeks. I had a 2-year-old at home. I kind of just wanted to get things going. So I didn't want to be waiting around pregnant up until my 41st week, or I wanted the baby here. Plus my husband, like I said, had taken time off work, and they said he was able to take more time off if the baby didn't come within that time span, but that wasn't really possible for the position where he was at. So we just we wanted to get things going. So she attempted to do the sweep, and she couldn't reach my cervix. So that was a little bit discouraging to me. I was kind of bummed when she told me, she's like, I can't even reach your cervix. I'm like, oh my goodness. And for those of you who have done a membrane sweep, or have had it done to you, I guess is the proper way of putting it, it's not the most comfortable thing, I guess. I'll just put it that way. But she did give us some other options we could try to induce labor. and that, but then she had scheduled me for a stress test the next day, just because I guess if you go past 40 weeks, they kind of just want to keep monitoring you to make sure there's enough fluid, just watching you and the baby. So I was scheduled for a stress test the next day, but she's like, if you want to get things going, here's some ways to induce labor, I guess. So that night, my husband and I did some of the things to induce labor. Some mommy and daddy time, I guess we'll call it. That's what we say too, if we're in front of the kids. And I kid you not, 2 minutes after, I'm laying in bed and I feel a whoosh, and it was obviously different than the first time my water broke, just because I was asleep when my water broke, so I didn't feel the initial rupture, I guess. But I was laying in bed and I told my husband, I'm like, my water just broke. We gotta go. We didn't really rush out of the house this time, just because our daughter was asleep. We kind of had a plan with my mom and sister, but since it was in the middle of the night, or it was about 11:45 at night, we were kind of up in the air of what we should do. So I called my mom, told her what happened, told her my water broke. She said she would meet us at the hospital. My other sister was going to come and pick up our daughter from us there. But before we left, I wanted to get in the shower just because I wanted to wash my hair. I had everything planned. I want to go in with clean hair. I want to, just feel good about going into the hospital, just because once we get in there, we don't know how long it's going to be until the baby came. We found that out with our first one. We were there for a long time, and I just wanted to be clean. I know a lot of you guys can understand that. So I ended up taking a shower, wash my hair, kind of take my time getting ready. As my husband's getting things together, I start to get dressed, and I notice the fluid, my water breaking, I guess. The fluid is colored, and not just colored, it's like a brown color, and I'm like gushing at this point. I literally had to change my pants like 3 times before we ended up leaving. I didn't want to alarm my husband and tell him while we were still here about the color of the fluid. So we got in the car, we start driving. Where I delivered at is about 35 minutes away from us, 40 minutes away. So we're driving, and I tell him in the car, just a heads up, I think the baby pooped inside. And he's like, why do you think that? And I told him, well, because the fluid is like a brown, and that's a sign of a baby pooping. And he's like, oh, okay, good thing we left when we did. And okay. So fast forward, we get to the hospital again. It's after hours again, so we have to knock on the doors. Security lets us in. They send a wheelchair down. They do the whole routine. Are you sure you ruptured? And this time, as I was like disrobing and they were getting me a gown, I had more fluid just on the bed and on the floor. And I told them what I think had happened, and they did confirm it. The baby did poop. So I don't know if I was aware of this, but that can mean the baby was in distress. So they did keep a close eye on that. So they hooked me up. I'm in. They're getting an IV in. Like I said, doing all the things. And this puts us at, it is the 28th, early morning 28th, January 28th. So it's about 1 a.m. So we're just waiting. My husband's there, my mom's there. They end up just kind of setting up camp in the room. The nurses told me to relax. I'm, again, not that far dilated. I'm about a 2, which I wasn't surprised just because I had trouble dilating the last time with my first. So, you know, time goes on. We're reaching early morning, early afternoon, I guess I should say. And I'm still hooked up, and, you know, I'm still getting contractions. And one of the times I had contractions, a bunch of nurses come in the room. Nurses, at least 4 nurses, and a doctor. They must have seen something on, or I know they saw something on the screen that it didn't sit right with them. It wasn't quite right. They told me to flip. I was laying down in the hospital bed. They told me to flip on all 4s. So I was on my hands and my knees. Great visual, I know. The hospital gown and everything. And the nurse started to kind of move my belly. And, you know, I think that just happening kind of startled me, and I was scared. Like, they just rushed in. My husband was sitting there, and I just really had no idea what was going on. And the doctor told me that when I had that contraction, that the baby's heart rate dropped. So once you hear that, you know, you start to worry. You start, like, your wheels start going in your head. What's wrong? Is the baby okay? You know, all the things. And the doctor starts to tell me, you know, if things don't progress as quickly as we want them to, here's some paperwork. We're going to need to take you downstairs. And downstairs means to the OR for a C-section. And I'm like, oh, I was not prepared for this. So that, again, that was in the back of my mind. But she's like, but we'll still keep you. They had given me Pitocin at this point, so I was contracting. But then 20 minutes later, you know, as contractions are going along, they come in again, and same thing, flip me. At this point, I start to get hysterical, I guess, at this point. I'm crying as I'm on all 4s. The nurse I had one arm on my back, rubbing my back, and the other wiping my face because I am crying. I'm just scared. I guess I was crying because I was scared. You know, they told me again that the baby's heart rate was dropping. So at that point, my husband said, we're done with the Pitocin. We'll figure something else out, because clearly the baby isn't reacting well to this, I guess. That's probably not the right word, but clearly something is not right. The Pitocin is causing the baby distress. I don't know. So he told the nurse this. So the nurse was a great advocate for us. She said, okay, if that's what you feel comfortable with, like, we're just gonna stop. The doctor suggested, like, oh, maybe we should turn it down. We did turn it down for a bit, but then my contractions were just non-existent. They went from like 2 to 3 minutes apart to 10 minutes apart. So it just wasn't doing anything. And we also knew that, again, the Pitocin was somehow affecting the baby. So we just pulled the plug on it, turned it off. And then At this point, it's into the early evening. I had filled out all the C-section paperwork just in case. And, you know, it had been 20 so hours since my water had broken. And the doctor came in and said, we're going to check you one more time. They did limit the checks to see if I was dilated or not, because the baby did poop in there. So they didn't want to check an excessive amount of times, just because that could cause an infection. So, but she did say, she's like, we're going to check you one more time. If you are not near where you need to be to push, we're going to have to take you down for a C-section. And I nodded my head. She checked me. I was at a 7, so I was not where I was needed to be. And she said, okay, we need to take you down right now. And I remember looking at my mom, because my mom was in the room, and I just started to cry. This was not something that I prepared for at all. And I knew that if that was the case, something was wrong, not with me, but with the baby. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional talking about it. But I just knew something wasn't right. So that was at 6:06 p.m. They wheeled me downstairs. They got all my stuff in the bed. They wheeled me down. My husband followed. My mom was not able to go with me, so she wasn't able to, you're not able to see anybody after your surgery, or any visitors, for at least 2 hours. So she made the decision just to go home, check on my daughter, who was with one of my sisters at the time. And then I would just call her after, and then, you know, she could come. But so they wheeled me downstairs, and they're getting me all set up in this white room, surreal. And my husband's not even with me. They told him he had to wait outside until everything was all set up, and then they would come get him. And while they're counting the tools, there's nurses there, there's the doctor, there was the anesthesiologist. She was great. She I remember feeling so nauseous, and I turned to her. She was on my right side, and I turned to her and I said, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. And she's like, okay, I can give you something for that. And you know, these nurses, the anesthesiologists, doctors, they were, I feel like they could see the worry in my face, and they did their best to try and make me feel calm, and let me know that they were gonna make sure that everything was gonna be okay. And so they numbed my stomach. They did this trick, which I figured out after, but they're like, we're gonna put water on your stomach. Tell us if it's hot or cold. So they did, and they did that, and I'm like, I can't feel it. I just feel liquid. And they're like, okay, good. And I'm like, oh, it's a trick to make sure that you're fully numb. So right before they started, they went and got my husband, and another doctor came in to assist the other OB that was helping, and I had known her. She had done some of my visits, and she had done a procedure on me, which that'll be another video. But she walked in and she introduced herself to me, not knowing that I already knew her. And I'm telling you, she was put in that room for a reason, to make sure everything was okay, because the minute she came in and told me she was helping, I just felt a sense of ease. And I started to cry again and tell her like how happy I was that she was there helping. But I was just really thankful that she was there. So they start, I guess, cutting. And they realize that, you know, they get my daughter out, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck 4 times. And according to one of the doctors, the doctor that was helping out, she had been in practice for 30 years and had never seen it 4 times. I guess once and twice are super common, but 4 times is not very common. So what they had discovered is that every time I was having a contraction, the umbilical cord would pull on my daughter, strangling her, essentially, making her heart rate drop. So I would have never been able to have her naturally, essentially. And just the thought of that scared me. When they got her out, I feel like I'm with every mom here. The first thing you want to hear is your baby cry. And it took a few seconds, but I was looking around, and I looked to my husband, and he's like, she's fine, she's good. And that the minute you hear your child cry after something like that, is nothing else matters. She's fine, they're good. Did I expect to have an emergency C-section? No, but was that the only way that she was gonna be brought to us Earthside? Yes. So I would do that 100 times again if that was the only way to bring her here safely. And it's crazy because from when they told me that they needed to take me downstairs, I distinctly remember looking at the clock again. It was 6:06, and our daughter was born at 6:18. So from when they wheeled me downstairs through everything, it was 12 minutes. And it's crazy how much they can do in 12 minutes. Again, when you're in the process, it seems like it's taking a long time, but it was 12 minutes from, like I said, the minute they told me, from the minute she was here. It didn't feel that fast, but I feel like they had to make sure they kept me calm as well. But just knowing that knowing that some people aren't so lucky, I guess, in that things could have gone so wrong. But, we were lucky enough to catch it, I guess, when it did. Watching the monitor, knowing that something wasn't right, that every time I got a contraction, the baby's heart rate would drop. Something went wrong. So with that, I don't know, now I'm like reliving this all over again and giving me all the emotions, but again, she's here. She was healthy. It was, obviously, we didn't know if she didn't get enough oxygen, or she was deprived of oxygen at any point in time. So they did have to keep her. They tested her levels in the operating room, thank goodness. She didn't have to go to the NICU or anything, which I was so grateful for. She was able to come back to the postpartum room with me. But I feel like now with things after, I feel like that's always going to be in the back of my mind. with my future kids, and that was a worry with our third baby, if that was going to happen. And I just feel like experiences always like shape your views on the future, I guess. But she came out perfectly fine, no, nothing wrong. But they did make a joke. One of the nurses, like, was she jumping rope in your belly? And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she was, because if you met my second daughter, she is a firecracker. She's great. And I'm grateful that we were able to bring her here safely. And was it part of our plan, our birth plan? Absolutely not. That was not what I expected. I honestly expected to have her early, 2 weeks early, a few days early. That was not the case at all. Again, people say your second one comes early. She did not. She came 2 days late, but we know why now. The cord was wrapped around her. She wasn't able to come to us naturally, I guess. So I hope the story helps somebody, brings awareness to C-sections, brings awareness to emergency C-sections. I know that, again, like I said, I didn't expect to have a C-section. I don't want to say I never wanted to have a C-section. I just didn't envision that for myself. And like I said, it doesn't make you any less of a mom, I guess, delivery wise. I know that's what I felt too. Even though I did give birth to my first naturally, I just know a lot. I felt that way, that my body failed me somehow, that I wasn't able to bring her here, naturally, I guess. But, that's not the case at all. Me getting her here, however it takes, is what matters most. And if she was healthy, that's what had to be done. So I hope that helps someone in some way, that it doesn't matter how your baby gets here, if it's naturally, C-section, planned C-section, anything. Just that getting your baby here earthside is what matters most. And